Hey everyone, this is John Puritz. Welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. This show is dedicated to each of us being better in all areas of our lives, mentally, spiritually, physically, and relationally. We want to help you be a better you because when you man up already, the world around you is greatly impacted. Here on the podcast, we don't believe you're an accident. We believe each of us is created for purpose, and this show is dedicated to helping you discover and live out that purpose. Again, welcome to the show, and let's check out another great episode. All right, everyone. Hey, welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. As always, super excited to have you here, and I am super pumped for our guest today. But before we bring him in, just want to remind you that whatever platform you're watching the podcast on or listening, if you can subscribe, share, right? Help us grow our audience. You're a vital part of that. And we really do appreciate you. Our guest today is the founder of Six Pack CEO and is a peak performance expert and trusted advisor to successful CEOs and business owners. He is known as the last resort for those exhausted from mainstream approaches and specializes in resolving challenges where others have failed. I'm excited to have our guest, so please welcome Mauro Stara. Mauro, great to have you on the Man Up Already podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me, John.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So you really are up to big things. What is the Six Pack CEO?
Yeah, it's very simple and straightforward. We help the guys who are men in the top 1% financial bracket get into top 1% shape. If we look right now in the world, but specifically in America, 99% of men are out of shape. They don't have a six-pack, and only 1% have a six-pack. So we help them get to the 1%. And a six-pack is one thing, but also optimizing internally their hormones, their biochemistry, how they feel, how they perform, how they think, so that they're really at their peak, at their A game inside, and obviously also outside.
Do you have, and it's interesting. So I'm 54, and I do an in-body scan every month. I'm chasing 15% body fat and 50% skeletal muscle mass, right? So what would you say are the, based on that kind of metric, what would you say is ideal, for guys or,
Yeah, good question. So we, the main milestone we have for our guys is getting down to 10%. At 10% body fat, it's almost, not always, some guys may need to go like 8-9% to see their abs, but like 10% usually is the bullseye, hits the mark where almost every man will see his abs, whether it's again or the first time in his life. And if you have a strong core, if you train your abs, let's say you do a lot of compound movements and engage your core, then it's going to be trained there. Then if you do some isolation work, say cable crunches or lag raises or whatever ab routine you're doing, then you can see your abs at a high body fat percentage. So in your case, if you say, hey, I want to get to 15% body fat, and you have a strong core, you may be six-pack lean there, where someone with a weaker core, with not so much muscle mass, may have to get all the way down to 10. So that's like where all the fat is stripped away. And from there, you can build. Because if someone gets, let's say, to 17% body fat and they see their abs, and now they start bulking, well, the abs will disappear like that. And it's not also very optimal to put on muscle mass, because a lot of the extra food that you're going to eat to get more muscle mass will move into fat cells and not into muscle cells. Where if you're leaner, more will move into your muscle cells because your hormones are optimized, right? So that's like maybe the answer to your first question with the body fat. And then as far as muscle mass, I'm not I mean, we can go with percentages, but I would rather focus on, okay, what's the height, the weight of that person, and how much lean muscle mass does that person have right now, and then focus on adding an extra 10 pounds. Okay, I've gotten there. Let's add an extra 10, 20, another 10, so total 20 pounds. And if someone has added 20 pounds of muscle to their frame and they're very lean, that is a very, very good target, especially if you're over 40, over 50, which can take a little bit longer if you do it naturally to pack on size.
So all of what you just shared is awesome. A little bit technical maybe for our listeners. So what led you? Two questions. One, what got you into helping men, because that's who you work with specifically, do this, and why? What's the benefits of what you just explained? What's the changes that would happen in their lives by not even just physically, obviously, mentally, emotionally? What are your, so I'd love to know how you got into what you do and then why you think the benefits are that important.
Yeah, so when I started coaching people, or let's say training people, because initially it was mainly training face to face in person before it became coaching, virtual coaching, I work with everyone. I just work with everyone, referrals, local people. And eventually I realized, hey, if you want to be a world-class expert, you got to be focused and put energy into one thing and one specific person. And so let's say, there's me and there's another coach and another coach, and I focus on men and women, and the second coach focuses only on women, and the third one only on men. And we put in the same amounts of hours into our expertise and learning and coaching. These two guys will be ahead of me because I'm splitting the energy, the focus, the attention. So I realized, okay, I have to give up one so I can dial in and focus on that specific person. And I just enjoy working more with men than I do with women. And that's like the very, very simple and dry explanation there.
Yeah.
Into that. And as far as the benefits of, we could say being lean and putting on muscle mass, if we look at research, it's very clear to a certain point, but the leaner you are and the stronger, more muscular you are, the more you extend your lifespan and your life quality. One, from an injury perspective, right? Especially as you get into like 65, 70 plus. So bone mineral density will be very, very big there. But the other one is also when you're leaner and more muscular, then your body is able to handle sugar better. So I always like to use the example of the water bottle. Let's say I have this bottle here, right? The bottle itself, those are my muscles, and the water inside is the sugar. Well, the bigger the bottle, the more sugar it can carry, right? So if we look at this bottle here, it can carry way more water and therefore way more sugar. So the more muscle mass you have, the more it soaks up the sugar from the blood, and the lower glucose levels and insulin levels will be. And we know today that insulin resistance is one of the, if not the worst driver of disease, specifically lifestyle created ones, right? So having more muscle mass is not just about looking strong and jacked at the beach. It's about optimizing your longevity, your health, preventing cardiovascular risks. So it comes with massive amounts of health benefits, and being lean will just add into that, because when you have less body fat, you have typically less inflammation, less visceral fat, liver is better, organs work better, like your entire body functions better, and you've just gifted yourself more years, and not just more years, more quality of life during those years. So if we want to focus on the health standpoint, right, there's a whole vanity thing, but I think your question was more centered around health specifically.
Yeah, because, I mean, I understand six pack abs are very important to men, right? But, if I've learned anything about goals is, you can hit a goal and then great, but the next day it's okay. What happens next? You know what I mean? Where you're really helping develop a lifestyle, and I know it was one of my questions that I want to ask was, your belief is fitness isn't a goal, right? It really is making it a lifestyle. And you kind of talked about, which I didn't know. One, the whole muscle, sugar thing and why it's important, I think is really powerful because that's for men and women, right? The more
Yes.
right fit you are, the more you're stripping sugar from your blood. I just, and we do have an obesity issue in this country. We have diabetes issues and all of that. So I think what you're talking about is really important. But I love that it really is about learning how to live a healthy lifestyle, right? Which permeates into so many different areas. So I think that's really key. One of the things that I know you talk about is in this journey of getting fit, how important sleep is. And I've done an episode on sleep and its effects because I've had a journey with that. But I wanted you to talk a little bit about why prioritizing sleep is very important, especially for men when it comes to testosterone, but also overall fitness.
Yeah, it's good you bring this up because I feel like so many people miss the point and the focus is just diet and exercise. And yeah, I get it. Those are important. But if we expand it to health, then sleep just climbs up that ladder. And I have like a cardiologist that we work together with the blood testing we do. We look for lifestyle-based markers, but also genetic markers. And if someone has like crazy high genetic markers, even though they've optimized their lifestyle, I tell them, hey, it would make sense to speak with a cardiologist just to be preventative there. And so one guy went to the cardiologist and he was eating very, very little, sometimes no carbs, and his sugar was extremely high. And he said, like, how's that possible? And the cardiologist told him, you can eat 0 grams of carbohydrates and still be pre-diabetic. And obviously, body fat is a thing. But he said, your circadian rhythm, sleep is going to have a huge impact on your sugar. And the guy was sleeping 3-4 hours a night. So of course, sugar levels are going to be elevated. So, giving that context to your question, there's a couple of things. One is, the whole aspect of brain health. Mm-hmm. So if you look at Alzheimer's risk, dementia, just cognitive decline, lack of sleep, poor sleep will have a huge impact on that. And then the other one is increased risk of mortality. So they did a study, and I almost couldn't believe it when I saw that, but it really showed the importance of your circadian rhythm. So in that study, they showed that your risk is higher for mortality if you get enough sleep. So let's say 7-8 hours, but don't go to bed at the same time. Versus the people in that group that go to bed at the same time, but don't get that much sleep, had a low risk of mortality. And going to bed and waking up at the same time is just a different definition, or shows the context of the circadian rhythm, which is the inner clock. So if that is optimized, that is like one of the most important things for our health, for our hormones, which you also talked on, for testosterone there as well, because most of your testosterone gets produced during sleep, specifically during REM sleep. That's the dreaming phase, the phase usually from 12 to 6 a.m. plus minus. Again, depends when someone goes to bed and when they wake up or get up. But yeah, for men, that's going to be huge. But even for the female listeners and really anyone that is watching this, sleep should be prioritized more than even diet and exercise. So it should be all together, but that should be the core foundation. Just one night of poor sleep will have an impact on sugar, on metabolism, on cravings, on hunger, and it puts you in a really bad spot where it identifies a lot of bad habits.
Yeah, no, I'm a big proponent on getting proper sleep. I know, how much it changed my life just by getting that handled. Um, so it is absolutely key. The other thing was, I think so many people miss, I love what you said that sleep is more important than exercise and diet, right? It kind of starts there, right? The thing we probably neglect the most is the thing that we should pay attention to the most. So when somebody's off, so I'm sure some of our listeners, this might be new. How do you help somebody kind of get that in check? Like, are there some habits that you recommend for people to focus on that?
Yeah, sure. So, it depends where someone is. Like, some people will realize, hey, I want to change this and I need the hacks, which we can go into. And others will have the excuse or the justification, like, well, I'm so busy and my schedule. But from my experience, the people are most successful with their sleep have one rule, and they design their schedule to the work schedule, their daily schedule to match their sleep, and not their sleep to match the work schedule. And a lot
Mm.
of
Yeah, that's
people
a
get
big
that
distinction.
backwards. Yeah. Once you've made that decision, then we can go more tactical. And, there's a couple of things. Sleep starts in the morning. So getting in morning sunlight, even if there's no sun, going out, walking the dog 10, 15 minutes, having a coffee outside in your garden, balcony, just getting out, getting some light will reset the circadian rhythm. And then number two, managing light at night. So if you work late at night, get some blue light blockers, put them on, 1, 2, maybe 3 hours before bed. If you're not working, you're not on your phone. Who isn't on their phone these days? Later in the evening, but let's say someone is not, then you obviously don't need them. You can still dim the lights. Not eating before bed is really a big one. If you eat too close to bed, then your core body temperature is going to be up, and your heart rate is up. And if you're hot and your heart rate is up, you're not going to get a lot of deep sleep because you need your core body temperature to be low and cool down for you to get deep sleep. So those are a few there. And then some people snore. Maybe it's a bit of sleep apnea, maybe it's tide related. But so one thing that helps here is using mouth strips, like a hostage tape, that just shutting your mouth, and that forces your body to breathe through the nose. And when you breathe through the nose, then you get more oxygen. You'll sleep better, deeper. Making sure the temperature in that room is cool enough, that will be a certain threshold or range for most people. Usually men can go cooler. Women is like, I'm freezing, I need a second cover. So there's solutions for that as well. But that is a big one. And I would say the last one is, if you have blackout curtains, great. But if there's just a little bit of light, there's a TV, there's just some light in the room, get a sleep mask that you're fully covered so there's no light, and then your body can produce more melatonin. And actually, one more cue that I want to give to that is, if someone has issues falling asleep, usually it's melatonin. So how can I get more melatonin? Sunlight, foods like pistachios or supplements. If you have issues staying asleep, then it's more serotonin related. And then foods that are rich in tryptophan, like a banana before, like 1 hour before bed, just a little bit of it can help there as well. So always ask yourself, do you have issues falling asleep or staying asleep? And from my experience, I don't know about you, John, maybe for yourself or the people you've encountered, I found most people don't have an issue falling asleep, but have an issue staying asleep there. Have you noticed the same?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm so interested in this topic. Is that was a major issue for me. I then had a sleep study done, and I do have apnea, which is, I have an episode from last year that we talked to Dr. Blaine on that, and one of the things that he talked about was a lot of apnea can be in your orthodonture, um, And so we dove into that. But I'm one of those people. And once I got, I started with the hostage tape. I tried all these different things. And then when I finally got the apnea machine and getting that oxygen, I was going from 3 to 4 hours of sleep to 7 to 8.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, big time. I mean, the mental clarity from that alone, right? But then again, they all tie in. That's how I started to see body fat drop off once that sleep change happened. It was everything you're talking about, which is why I'm such a big proponent on that, because I saw it myself.
That's usually the best way to believe it.
Yeah. So what do you think? What are the big inhibitors for people, Mauro? Like what keeps people from achieving fitness? Like I understand number one, it's a decision, right? People got to decide that they're gonna make this. But what do you think blocks people from getting where they want to be? They set out on that road, right? They have that goal. What kind of derails them if in your experience?
It always depends where someone is in their journey. I've created like 3-4 years ago a document with, I think there were 14 roadblocks of different stages why someone can progress. But if we go maybe the biggest ones, time is always a thing. I'm busy, I don't have time. And I think a lot of people say that because they haven't found a way to make it work for their schedule. And once you've made it work for your schedule, then it still requires time, but it integrates a little bit better. And over time, it just becomes part of your identity. The other one is hunger and cravings and starvation. So a lot of people say, well, I've tried all the diets and, I've done this, I've counted calories, but eventually I always get hungry and have to resist, have to force myself, and the weight comes back, right? And the focus there should be have a nutrition protocol, and obviously lifestyle factors like sleep coming to that as well. But if we focus on diet only, that helps you with your hunger and appetite. So one of the things that work really well for a lot of our guys is to move most of their carbs at the end of the day, and during the day have no carbs, and that keeps their blood sugar levels stable. And when your blood sugar is stable, you have a lot of mental clarity, which allows you to focus better. But number two, no hunger, no cravings, which makes it easy to eat less naturally and not by force. So that is really a big one, to not spike your sugar, keep it stable, so you're not on a roller coaster and snacking and hungry all the time. And that's going to make it much, much easier to stick to the plan and see consistent results with your nutrition there. So those are like the two big ones. And then maybe a third one is people get too comfortable when they've made progress. And it can be because of compliments from the environment, that everyone says like, man, John, you look so good. You look fantastic. And you start looking better than all your peers in your environment. And you think like, well, I'm so good, I look better than everyone else. And that keeps a lot of people year in, year out the same. But another one is a lot of people's goals are pain driven, meaning their motivation is, I don't want to be fat anymore. And so they start here with the goal, I don't want to be fat anymore. And the more body fat they lose and get here, the further they're away from their motivation. So if you think about it, the closer you get to your goal, the further you away from your motivator. So the only way to get motivated again is to go back to square one, right?
Wow.
So the goal is then to shift. You can have the pain-driven motivation, that says, hey, I don't want to be fat anymore. But eventually, as you start losing weight and feeling better about yourself, there should be a bigger vision. Like, where am I going? Where am I heading? And that vision always evolves. It's never a stop. It's a marathon, and it's a lifelong marathon, just like anything else, like marriage, right? It's not, oh, we get there and then it's done. You start and you never stop. Well, fitness is the same. You start and you never stop. And once you realize that and you start resetting goals and evolve, then it becomes a byproduct of who you are, and you see lifelong progress given you've got the right tools and systems, obviously, right?
Right. No, that's great, man. I love it. It goes back to, so many of these things, right? Being fit, being or wellness, right? I'm good in my relationships. I'm good in my physical. I'm good in my mental. All these things, they can't be so. I love what you just said about moving away from your motivation. Your motivation has to be much bigger than, I want to lose weight or I want to be happy, right? You hear that all the time, and well, what does that mean, right? And there's got to be bigger motivations, more finite targets. I love what you're talking about. The other thing I wanted to touch on was, you're dealing with men, you're dealing with that 1%, but something that I have in my notes was valuing health over financial success or success in other places. Because how often do you see, right, that somebody's like dedicated to their work and they're financially well off, but their fitness sucks or other areas of their sucks? So maybe can you talk about, I know you're in the fitness component, but being a little bit more well-rounded, or wellness is kind of a lifestyle, not just tied to one specific area like fitness or finance or whatever.
So just to clarify, are you saying what needs to happen for someone to see more value with their health just as with their wealth?
Well, I know that you work with the 1%, and the 1% tends to get hyper focused on one area and neglecting other areas.
Yes.
Right. So that's kind of what I mean. There's being a little bit more, why, maybe touch upon, because your area is health. Why should health be that? I mean, obviously, right? It's the one thing we can control. You can't take, health. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything, right? Like it's kind of that kind of scenario. But I know when you're dealing with that 1%, sometimes other things take a priority than making sure that your body's in peak performance, your mind's in peak performance, etc.
Oh yeah, I understand it. Thank you for clarifying. So I think it even starts for men or people in general that are not in the 1%. It's more a DNA thing, maybe, for entrepreneurs, that we tunnel vision on something and we go all in. That's why most entrepreneurs have ADHD. People like maybe in school or so, it's like, oh, that kid or that person gets easily distracted or easily bored. It's like, no, like if the mind is not entertained with that, then we jump to a new idea that entertains us and we can hyper focus. So it's a weapon, but we need to be able to use it. And again, I just think it's part of being a business owner, an entrepreneur. So I don't think you can, well, you can, but I don't think that's the strategy to success, to untrain that there and just split that focus up all the time. Rather, what I tell the guys is, look, this is something new. I want you to have a total immersion into your health for 90 days. So focus on it, go all in. And once you've mastered the basics and the fundamentals that need to be in place, then it's on autopilot and automated. And then you can reshift the attention to business, because that's where the attention is. Even for me, like I'm in the health space. I run a health coaching business, but the number one thing is going to be business, right? And that's the beauty about it. When you have good health systems, fitness systems in place, they don't have to be number one. Maybe initially like 1 to 3 months to dial in and be locked in, understand it. Like, hey, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What's the how as well? And then once that's playing, then I can refocus on business and don't have to think. Like, I don't think about when will I work out, what will I eat. It's so automated because I've done it so long enough, and anyone can get into that place over time. So to wrap up the answer to your question, I would just say take that focus, zoom out, look here, and then you can zoom in there again. Where if you like split it forever, I've not seen that to be very, very successful, because most guys are not really interested in being like a health freak or so, or a gym rat. They just want to have that sorted out and focus on other things.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You know, it's just, I talk about this all the time, right? Success is built on a chassis, right? It's the same fundamentals kind of applied in any area, and you're just touching on that and proving that, like it starts obviously with a decision, but it's the little things, right? Get your sleep right, get your diet right. You know, when you're coaching people, is there a set time that, you know, you hear all the time, you could do a 20-minute workout, you could do a 45-minute workout, you know, like from a session standpoint, finding that time, is it more about what you're doing in that time, or setting or the amount of time when you're working on your fitness? What would you say?
They both matter. So if you have the perfect routine, but it's only 5 minutes, then
that ain't gonna work.
ROI is not there. If you have a bad routine for 1 hour, you may still make a little bit of progress. So you want to have both in place. So there's obviously a certain amount of time you need to spend at the gym or working out, whether it's at home or at the gym. And obviously you need to be knowing what to do, or have someone that knows what you need to do and lays it out for you. But time-wise, 30, 45 minutes are enough for most people, including like a short warm-up.
Yeah.
Once your muscles are stimulated, like you send a signal for growth, all the extra sets and volume that people throw in, like, let me do another one. That's like Usain Bolt sprint training. And when he's done, start running laps and jogging. Like, that will just mess up his recovery. It will not improve his sprints, and it will just fatigue him. So it's going to take him longer to recover and affect his sprints the next day. So the same is here. Once a signal is sent, then that's pretty much it. There's no need to do, all these, sets and sets and sets, and people spend, 4, 5, 6 days, 7 days a week, 2 hours a pop at the gym. And a lot of times then they don't look like they lift, or they're just fatigued, their testosterone is low. It's like, man, you're overdoing it. You can achieve way better results in 3 days, maybe a fourth day, 20, 30, 40-minute workouts, high intensity, where you send that signal. There's a study that showed that the stimulation for your muscles from the very first set that you do, if you do it right, like very high intensity there, and I don't want to get too technical, but very high intensity, the stimulation is so strong that it takes another 4 to 5 sets after that to achieve the same stimulation.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you power yourself out, so to say, in that first set, you can achieve a lot. And I'm not saying just do one set and then go home, but to show you the impact of it there.
It's two things. Number one, how much, we continue to learn about fitness in particular, and what you're talking about, being optimal in your workouts. And I think those are important. But number two, it just stresses how important I think it is to have a coach in any goal that you're tackling. You can't do it on your own. You really need a mentor. You need a coach, which is obviously what I know you do. So to wrap up here, how do people find you, right? How do they find you and get to work with you? How do they follow you, et cetera?
Yeah, there are 3 ways. One is go to sixpackceo.com. So 6 with the letter 6, packceo.com. Number 2 is Facebook. Just put in my name. And number 3 is Instagram. Also put in my name. These are the top 3 sources, top 3 sources social media ways to follow me, find me, and that's where I also share my best content.
Awesome. Well, I highly encourage people to follow you, both men and women, because what you just talked about. I know you work with men, but you just brought a lot of value to both, and clearly a great expert in your field. And I'm really super happy to have you again on the podcast. You really did bring a lot of value.
Well, thank you very much for having me, John. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And for our listeners, follow Mauro. Again, like, follow, subscribe, share the podcast, and we will see you all on the next episode. Take care.